Ladies and gentlemen, please, we are in the next session and we're having a work title. Are we together, please? We're having a work title, Women in Senior Management Position, Why So Few? An Insight into the Nigerian Banking Sector by Abiola Ademola Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abiola Ademola Thomas, but you can call me Abby. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the Department of Organizational Behavior and Human Resource Management. I'm near completion, and my PhD is in Women in Leadership, and I'm investigating the reasons why women have continued to be underrepresented at senior management positions. So today I'm presenting one of my working papers that emerged from my research, which is Women in Senior Management Positions, Why So Few? And I'm particularly looking at the Nigerian banking sector. So a quick background to this study is the fact that one, women have continued, in the past, in the past few decades, women have advanced in education, women have, acquired more professional certification, women have upped their skills, they have transitioned from the informal sector to the formal sector. So by implication, women are more visible in the workspace. And not only that, women have also succeeded in finding their way into decision-making roles. So they have moved into management. They become more visible at lower management level. They become more visible at middle management level. But globally, it is still an issue of concern that women have continued to be underrepresented. Now, gender issue is one of the scholarly debated issues. Current debate, women is one of it. If it is that if this is a global issue, then why am I interested in this? Like one of the participants said, when you marry and start raising a family, your responsibilities increase, and this could distract a woman from work. As a woman, at a particular point in time, life happens to you. You move from face to face. You transition somewhere, maybe not all, but most women transition from being a single lady to a wife, married person. You take up additional responsibility, that's another role. If you're lucky to start having kids, you take up more responsibility, that's another role. So you transition from being a single person, an employee, to being a wife, additional role, to being a mother, additional role. So now you have these roles that require different responsibilities. And if you're not able to manage this as a woman, you experience what is called role conflict. So it now dawns on the woman to be able to kind of know when to draw the line, the boundaries between these multiple roles. So why am I interested in this study? One, this study, the scope of this study is limited to Nigeria, the banking sector in Nigeria. Why? In Nigeria, there are three main sectors that offer the best welfare package, such that any young graduate or any individual would want to go into those sectors before you consider others. One, the telecoms, the banking sector, and the oil and gas. Now, the banking sector is a rapidly growing sector that recruits more of women than men. So over 55% of their employees statistically are women. At entry level, every 100 employees, you might find, like 60% of it are women. So you begin to wonder, okay, if the banking sector in Nigeria is taking in a lot of women at entry level, what then is happening? You see them growing, you see them at lower middle management, you see them at lower to middle management, But at senior management, you see the number is so few, it's more like a boys' club. So you begin to wonder what's happening to the women. Are they stuck? Are they exiting? If they are exiting, why? So the aim of this study was to identify the barriers limiting women in the Nigerian banking sector from advancing to senior management position. And not just that, to also develop strategies that can help to promote these women to attain senior management positions. So in trying to do this, I reviewed some relevant literature to this study to have a broad knowledge of what was happening globally. And these are some of the concepts that I reviewed. And I discovered that globally, the global employment trend for women is similar in almost all countries. What am I trying to say? Globally, women have moved, women have transitioned from being almost invisible in the workplace to visibility. They've moved from agriculture to the service sector. They've moved from the informal sector to the formal sector. So the representation of women is there. Women are present in the workspace. Then I looked at, all right, if women are there in the workspace, what is happening to women in management globally? Now, what I found is that the underrepresentation of women at senior management position is a global issue, is a global problem. However, it varies from country to country. There is a significant trend. Women are getting to senior management position, but at a very slow pace, not at the pace that we want, not at the pace that we're expecting. Then another thing I discovered is that every country, every culture has patriarchy. However, this is country specific and this is culture specific. The extent to which patriarchy is practiced in every society varies. In Nigeria, it is strong, it is high. And I also reviewed women and power in organizations. And what I found here is that men and women exercise power in ways that are similar, as well as ways that are different. I'll give an example. When you think manager, for an average person, what comes to your mind is a man. I don't know if you've heard about think manager, think machine. When a male manager exercises power, he could be authoritative, he could be assertive, he could decide to be aggressive. People tend to listen to him, people respect him, people comply easily. The boss is talking. But let a woman replicate that. A woman in the same position, with the same level of authority, replicate that, try to be authoritative, try to be assertive, try to be a bit aggressive. She's prejudiced, she's stereotyped, people complain she's bossy, she's abusing the power. They may or may not listen to her, but she's going to have a bit of a challenge compared to the male counterpart. Why? Because the society has stereotyped both male and female to behave in different ways. So when a woman steps out of her prescribed characteristic behavior and tries to behave like the man, then she's prejudiced. I also discovered a lot of some of those barriers, family, organizational, societal barriers in existing literature. This is a global problem. Now, this study, I found two theories relevant to it, the social role theory and the institutional theory. I find the social role theory relevant because the social role theory helps you to understand why people behave the way they behave in different roles. For example, I might behave differently as an employee. Maybe as a manager, I'll behave differently. But as a wife, I'll be a different me. and as a mother, I'll be a different me. It is the same person, but in different roles. So the social role theory helps us to understand the characteristic differences in the behavior of people when they find themselves in different roles. So I find this applicable to my study. And then institutional theory explains how institutional pressures can influence organizational culture or organizational decision. For example, in Norway, they passed the law in 2003. It was implemented in 2008. What was the law? Female gender quota. They passed the law and said every public trading company must reserve 40% of their board seats for women or face dissolution. Initially, it wasn't, it raised a lot of arguments. They didn't accept it, but eventually it was accepted. And that has increased the number of women on board. And other countries like Finland, like Italy, like Iceland also, borrowed the idea. Nigeria did, but not as a law. The Central Bank of Nigeria in 2012, encouraged banks to reserve 40% seats for women in senior management position and 30% for women on board. But are we there? No. Even the Central Bank of Nigeria, on their board, maybe there's 1 out of 7, 1 female to 7 male. So it's not a law in Nigeria, but it's still an issue. Now, in this study, I used qualitative research, inductive reasoning, and my philosophical stance is the fact that there is no single reality. People see reality from multiple perspectives. My reality might be different from your reality. And then the epistemology is the fact that, okay, reality is also interpreted differently. The way I will construct knowledge and understand it is different from yours. And then for this study, what I used is a semi-structured online interview for 30 participants. The data was recorded, transcribed, encoded using NVivo. And then for my data analysis, I used thematic analysis. Now, what did I find? This is what I found. I found that indeed women face a lot of barriers compared to their male counterparts. There are so many factors that impede women from advancing in their careers. Consistent with existing literature, I found family barriers, marriage. When a woman gets married, you take on additional responsibilities. When you get pregnant, you take on additional responsibilities, childcare. Now, the degree of spousal support goes a long way to make or mar your career. When you take on these additional responsibilities and you don't have the support of your spouse, some women struggle and might, leave their job, pause their career. Some pause it and never even go back. Others pick it up at some point, but they struggle. And then I found organizational barriers, which include lack of flexible work hours, unrealistic target workload, subjective appraisal, when your appraiser is dependent on one man, your boss, and if you're not in the good books, employees don't have a voice in the Nigerian banking sector. And the reason is because the bank has made it such that employees don't join trade union. So because they are not allowed to join the trade union, it's a private sector. They're not allowed to join the trade union, they don't have a voice. They can't convey their grievances. They can't fight. They can't demonstrate. They can't fight the employers. So in most cases, they are at the mercy of the employer. Gender bias, sexual harassment internally, and sexual harassment externally. Externally with the customers, particularly when you are a marketer and you go looking for money for the bank, go looking for deposits. Or internally, maybe your bosses are harassing you sexually. And if it is the same boss that is going to appraise you, then you can know how subjective that could be. So additionally, I also found self-imposed barrier. This is one barrier that is scarce in literature. I discovered that a lot of women create barriers for themselves. A lot of them are so comfortable in their comfort zones that they forget to advance their education. So many of them don't even consider taking on professional certification. And then job mobility. In most cases in the banking sector, when you're transferred, for example, to go head a new branch, this is always a promotion in disguise. But for most women, they often do not take this because one, you think of your family, you don't want to leave your husband in hall and go to London. But for a man, before you think of the family, you would have taken the opportunity. So this gives the male counterparts leverage over the women. Now talking about self-development, one of the issues I came across during my interview, there were 3 women who happened to be in the same bank. Now this bank was acquired by another bank. After the acquisition, the management reviewed policies, changed procedures, and discovered that the certificates that these people, have is not equivalent to the position they hold. So what happened? In their previous bank, it was enough because they were giving them in-house training, which was sufficient. But in the new bank, no, they want additional qualifications, they want professional certifications. So what happened to them? They were demoted. And that was demotivating. So there are so many ways discovered that women can, impose barriers against themselves. And there's also patriarchy. Nigeria is a masculine country. The male dominion is high, and the level of power distance is quite high. The level at which the high oppress the low is quite high in Nigeria. Like somebody said, it's the man that stays at work, the woman stays with the children, because it's in an ideal situation, the woman stays more with the children, so you cannot reverse the trend. So you can see it's already there. It's a mindset. Now, based on these barriers that I found out, collaborating with the participants, we came up with strategies for advancing women. And these are the strategies. We discovered that there are 3 parties to this model. The women themselves have a lot to do for themselves. The bank has a role, the policymakers have their role, but the women have a role to play, and they are the first stakeholder in the change model. What do they need to do? They need to plan. How many people have a career plan? How many women plan to achieve a particular milestone before they get married? How many women plan after marriage, okay, I need to do this before I start having kids? Because you are aware that at this level, you take on additional roles and responsibilities. Education. How many people are still in their comfort zone? After the first degree, you've got your job, your salary is good, the welfare is great, the package is good, the lifestyle is there. But how many people are taking on additional qualifications? How many have an MSc, MBA, even PhD? How many of them are taking on professional certification? Like it happened to those 3 women that were demoted. If they had advanced themselves, they would have been prepared for the unknown. Then visibility. Maybe because of the characteristics of women, women are supposed to be seen, not heard. So maybe a lot of women are shy, timid, but I think there needs to be a reorientation because women need to make themselves visible. You need to blow your trumpet, you need to shout, you need to announce yourself, you need to project yourself. That is what men do. They project themselves. They put themselves there, right before the opportunity. Women will hide. If they don't bring us out, we don't like to come out. So it's time for us to change that orientation. It's no longer a man's world. We need to change our orientation. We need to project ourselves. We need to make ourselves visible. We need to show that we can do it. And we need to be ready to move. When opportunities come and require job mobility, we need to move. We need to take calculated risks. And for the bank, these are some of the things we feel they can put in place. If they're able to put a crèche close to the office, then a nursing mother can successfully be a mother and also an employee. She can take care of her child while working. You know, they need to be flexible work pattern, especially for nursing mothers. Female-friendly policies, female mentors, women that have managed to get to the top. How did they do it? There should be platform to engage with such women. What happened? How did they do it? They need to mentor the younger ones. And for the policymakers, we looked at Central Bank of Nigeria being the regulatory body of all banks. They have a role to play. Most of the banks in Nigeria, they have a board. But then the decision is taken, in most cases, by maybe one man. So these are the things they need to put in place. Make sure that the supposed organizational structure is true. Policies and legislations that can, enhance female participation, like it was done in Norway. Nigeria can pass a law for female quota. So based on my understanding of the literature that I reviewed, the findings from my interviews, the strategies that we came up with, this is the conceptual framework I came up with. This is my understanding of everything I have done. The issue is women need to get to senior management position. We need to advance them. There are barriers which has been identified that are, suppressing women from getting to the top. Now, when these barriers press these women down, what happens? Two things. Is either they develop a positive attitude that against all odds, they must beat these barriers and get to the top. If they don't develop a positive attitude, if they get frustrated, if they get overwhelmed, they will burn out. And when the burnout happens, it's either they are leaving the job, stagnate, or they're just there. So if these women decide to take on a positive attitude, help themselves, because they are the first stakeholder in the change model, help themselves by breaking self-imposed barrier, access support from the bank, access support from the policymaker, definitely they will find their way somehow to the top. Like I said, the trend is positive, is significant, but is slow. But the good news is women are getting there. So in summary, this study investigated the barriers that prevent women from attaining senior management positions in the Nigerian banking sector. While the majority of the factors that I have identified, family, organizational, society, patriarchal society, consistent with existing literature, what I find new that is also under-researched is the self-imposed barrier. A lot of women consciously or unconsciously create barriers to themselves. Like one of the women said, maybe a bit of laziness, I don't know, or not having a focus on what I wanted to do. I just did all that. I never thought of doing a master's or I was just working. This is one of the women that was demoted. So in conclusion, This study contributed to theory and knowledge by developing a tripartite stakeholder strategy for advancing women to senior management position in the Nigerian banks. Also, this is my own perspective and conclusion now, that I think women need to take responsibility for their careers and stop the blame game. In most instances, we blame the system, we blame the bank, we blame, the institution, we blame the government. What about us? What are we doing for ourselves? How are we dealing with the barriers we create to ourselves? What plans are we making? When the opportunities arise, do we see it? Do we seize it? Do we take it? Are we ready to take risk? Are we ready to come out of our comfort zone? These are all the things that men do. So if we want to compete favorably with the male, then we should be ready to take the risk they take. We should be ready to go all out. We should project ourselves and make ourselves more visible. So, a recommendation. This study is recommending that there should be more studies on self-imposed barriers. This study is a qualitative study that interviewed 30 participants. So the same study can be replicated using quantitative research with a larger sample size. Then another thing is the fact that the way banking is practiced in Nigeria is different from the West. So a comparative study, between a developing country like Nigeria and a developed country like maybe the UK can also benefit. Thank you.
Good presentation, very lovely one.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, this time around, Chile will go first. Please. Yeah, this time around. So it might not go that way, maybe like this and like this. Yeah.
So, yes, thank you very much. Very beautiful presentation, very neat and everything. Sorry I missed part of the presentation. But I want to say, what I want to say is that, this is unfortunately, it's a patriarchal society and it's male dominated. Everything we do is traditionally male ideology. But the thing is, lately or recently, yes, the women are climbing. Like you said, it's a slow process. Because for men to get there too, it was a process. Or for men to have dominated. And in banks, when I go to banks, I think 80% of people, maybe not on the managerial level, but I think 80, let me not say 80, I'll be exaggerating. But about 70% in banks, in Nigeria, are women. So I think it will take a while for them to, because it's a progression when they start working. And when did women start working in banks? It was just in the 2000s. That was when there was an influx of women into the banking sector and even all sectors. In Nigeria, they started fighting for, 25% representation and all that. The clamor is on, and I think gradually, and also if the women don't, I think you also mentioned self-imposed barriers, because sometimes they look at themselves like, no, I'm a woman. I think the greatest enemy of the woman is the woman herself.
The woman.
They said if you lock 10 men in a room, in a small room, you come back after 2 days. They will either be sitting down they'll be gisting, talking about maybe politics, they'll be talking about sports, they'll be chatting, they'll be together. But if you lock 10 women in that same room and come back in 2 days, you see there will be two groups of maybe 5 talking about this one, we're talking about this one, so we're talking about this one, so we're talking about this one. So I think the greatest enemy of the woman is the woman herself. So well, it's a process, and I think yes, and
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
And funny enough, ironically, in this room, there's just apart from her now, there was just in the audience, there's just one woman.
So there's patriarchy everywhere, even here.
Everywhere, yeah. So Yes. A very well presented write-up.
Thank you.
But I will defend the men. If you conduct a population census of how many men in Nigeria as opposed to how many women, for you to now want a quota that will now be unfair on all the population because you want to now impose people on others. It should be a market driven by excellence, by competence, and not by quota. So if you did not do a census of the number of men, I would say there is no need for a quota. And the other thing I want to also ask is, if you look at it, it's fine, you're a woman, so you are basing it on your side. The men will also feel that it's not fair if a woman is having a quota and the men too will not have quotas. Let's go to nursing, for instance. It's populated by women. Men too should be asking, we want to be there, but we are not. We are just forging ahead, doing what we are supposed to do to be there. You said when they say a manager, what comes to mind is a man. When they say doctor, what comes to mind is a man.
Is a man.
When they say a nurse, what comes to mind is a woman.
Why?
But the nurse is lower than
Why?
No, it's not lower. It is now the self-imposed barrier. You have nurses here. But
That's not self-imposed barrier. That is occupational stereotype.
You know that nurses now, some get paid more than doctors, and some nurses are also consultants.
No, but generally,
yes,
the doctors are generally. If you take the statistics, doctors are generally more paid, better paid than nurses.
Okay.
Then even the status accrued to it. Yes. If you see a doctor and see a nurse, a doctor,
what stops a woman from going there?
They're also achieving their.
So it's self-imposed, and we should not help them by giving the quota. That's what I'm saying.
Should I respond?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, 1 minute. To respond to what you have said, first, I will tell you that I'm speaking because I have statistics. Now, if you go to International Labour Organization Statistical Report 2020-2021, you will discover that the employment to population ratio, men to women are higher. So we have more women even in the labor force than men as it is now. Women are angry and they have moved into the labor force. Not only that, if you look at Grant Thornton business report, there's in fact the 2022 is out, you will discover the trend. Across all countries, women are angry, they are moving, and the ratio is growing.
Yeah.
So when you talk about their presence, women are present, that's the anger.
Yes.
They are present in the labor market, and the number has even exceeded that of men.
Yes.
So why have they continued to be underrepresented?
Yes.
Because it's a boys' club.
Yes.
Because the men there are excluding women.
Yes.
Because the men up there don't want to admit women. Yes. Because the men there are the decision makers. Yes. You see? And we're saying we are all global citizens now.
Yes.
Equal participation. Yes. It's no longer a man's world. We're changing the narrative.
Yeah, and just to buttress what you said. Even in leadership, they say, oh no, she's a woman. It happens in politics in Nigeria. The woman wants to contest for a role, they say, oh, she's a woman. We can't allow women.
I'll take just two questions. Just two questions. I'll take two questions. Oh, three questions. You first.
Oh,
Yeah. No. I want the spirit of this presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's not a question. It's just that to balance. I love the fact that you have this new one called self-imposed barriers. But the thing is, for women to progress, it's not easy, and it can be easy personally. For example, take a married woman who's living in Paul and now gets a very nice job, probably in Manchester. So if her husband is working here and has a good job, will he leave the job and go with her, or will she go and leave him? So it's really difficult. So sometimes it might not be easy. If personally I feel if the person has a family, it might not be easy. I'm in my mid-30s and it's kind of easy for me because I'm not married, so I can move anywhere. But I've got friends that are married, they have kids. Moving and then progressing in their career is very difficult because they will tell you when the kid is born until they are about their teenage years, they can't do anything because they put them in school, do other things. So it's, I don't know, it might be possible, but it's going to be very, very difficult. Even Dr. Frank that spoke today, he works here. So let's assume his wife got a job in another country. Will you leave UK and follow up how to progress?
It depends on the job, kind of job.
It's not difficult for men. It's meant to leave the job and follow them. To me, I feel one will have to like go for one. And no woman would want to leave the family behind and progress in their career. Most times when men progress, women do follow. It's kind of easy in a way. But for men, people are doing it, but it's really
It's blackmail. That's a self-imposed barrier.
That's a self-imposed barrier.
Why is it the man also take care of the family too?
If women should continue to have that kind of school of thought, then there's no point clamoring for gender equality.
Yes.
There's no point shouting you want to go to the top. If you ask those that have made it to the top, they sacrificed. And that's why you need to plan. You need to plan so that when the opportunity comes, you've put strategies in place.
Okay, next question.
My question is not related to this one, but it is, you can relate it. How can you manage your biasness towards this? Because you are the master of your data.
Yeah.
You can transform the data any way you want it, and no one can interfere in your work. I'm doing the qualitative research also. I'm also I have also conducted interviews in other, and I'm the master of the data. I can use it. How to manage your biases because you are a female?
How to manage your what?
Biasness.
Your biasness.
All right. All right. That's reflexibility. I don't know. I don't know if you've heard about researcher reflexivity. Reflexivity.
Reflexivity.
No, reflexivity. So as a researcher, because qualitative research is a subjective research. That's why I started that. My philosophical stance looks at truth from multiple perspectives. Because my own truth might not be your own truth. Like she said, this is going to be difficult. How will people family? But for me, I think it's doable. You see, it comes to attitude. That is her truth. It's not my truth. So as a researcher, because it's a subjective study, you have to consciously put your own bias aside. You have to make conscious effort. You have to put whatever your own perspective is, you put it away consciously. And your focus should be on what your respondents are saying, what their data is telling you, the pattern you are observing in what they're saying. It is their own truth that you are reporting, not your own truth. So you can't rule it out because it's a subjective study. That researcher bias would come up, but you have to make a conscious effort because of ethics.
But you are the master, you can change it out.
Yeah, but that would now be ethical issue.
Yeah.
And you know what that would do? It will give you the result you want. Not what.
You project the.
When I did my literature review, I didn't find self-imposed barrier. But it came up.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh,
The last question, I want to speak the last question. Is that
oh,
okay?
he's been raising.
Oh,
Provided you get space of time, then I can go.
Oh,
okay, two questions. I'll take two questions. 1 minute, yourself and the ladies and
So, well, I mean, this is a wonderful presentation.
thank you.
Serenity is there, flow like stream, ideas are excellent. That put us to a reflection where there was a genuine sort of sensitivity. You properly sensitized us about the practical issues women may be confronted with.
Thank you.
An area may evoke you for carrying out some research is that under the underdeveloped countries, many of women are exploited and harassed on account of poor economic conditions, and that's an area which you may write or will explore how to be plugged through legislation. And at times, I came across sort of few of the reports I was examining back home in my country, and there are many cases in underdeveloped countries where at times men are harassed by the false accusations. Put to a situation where some sort of leeway, sort of that concession for the reasons given to representation provided to the women, and they also at times try to exploit those areas. Although there are of course genuine reasons, those are liable to be taken care of. Then how to cope with such a situation? At times, look, I have found some of them through the superior officer in the hierarchical order putting false accusations, which eventually turned out to be unfounded in inquiry, and they turned apologetic. So, is it not both ways, that at times there is some amount of harassment on the part of some women also?
I think it's both ways. It works both ways.
That's right. So that's an area we need to plug in,
So that's the consideration for further studies, right?
That was my reflection. I prefer to express.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. The chairman, I'm very grateful for the privilege granted to me, and I really appreciate the delivery of the study. I mean, it's excellently done. To be sincere, perfect. From A to Z of it, I really appreciate it. And maybe for further study, if the way things are going in Nigeria now, it's a little bit dicey. These banks are privately owned. I don't think government owns any bank in Nigeria. Maybe they have shares, but most of them they are privately owned. And we are clamoring women should come in. They are coming in, and then I hate. Don't let me use the word I hate, but I don't like the way one of the banks in Nigeria plays that. Okay, if you are a woman, you can come in. The first 5 years you can't get married. You get married, 50 year. The next 5 years or 3 years you can't give a child. You can't have a child. That means you must have worked for them 8 or 10 years.
Then you start at 18.
Before you can have a child. That's why I so much appreciate your study. This is very, very, to me personally, it's very wrong. That is a trend before. People, social media, the raise of issues on this. We have our women there. Another trend now, which I have female at the corridor of power up there in banks, is that somebody walked into my office. Binga, if you can get me somebody that will give me 250 million now, I'm ready to give that person my body. Because there is a quota or
Target,
God bless you, that you must reach. Maybe our target is 10 million as a manager. So she's desperate to get money, not her money, to get money to the bank, to sustain her job. So they are still molesting or abuse our women. So I don't know.
men are also.
What I'm saying is that
Give what you have now.
what I'm saying is that, oh, sorry, men are there. If you can't get it, you drop. There's nothing you want to offer your body. But we're clamoring, we want to be there.
Look at this quote. One of the women said, she said, my personal experience as a young person coming into the banking,
Yes.
the system objectified women and in different ways. It's, as you know, starting from what it is, we just close our eyes to here in Nigeria. Sexual harassment, it was taken as a norm. It was just something that was normal. For me, on several occasions, I felt very, very objectified. I was just there for somebody to slap me on the thigh, slap me on the bum, give me lewd remarks about how much he wants to kiss me right here and there, or people actually touching you inappropriately.
And
so it does happen.
Yes,
But you remember I said one problem is women, I mean, it's not even about women now. Bank employees don't have a voice. How are they going to report this? Who are they going to report to? How do they take it up? Is it to the management that is sending them out to go get this money? They send you out to go bring the deposit. They don't care how you do it. Just do it.
But women are still clamoring to be there.
We need a career.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That's a very well done.